Hello again, Struckweb. Today I'm bringing you another build video suggestion, and this one would be for the Dusk Mage class, or also known throughout the community as the Dusk Master. So this is your typical Bane Entropy setup, but it's a summoner setup. So it may not be like a meta setup, but yeah, it's the Entropic Summoner Dusk Mage build, as I like to call it. So what we're using here is Spirit for summons. We're using the Bane Spiderlings as summons, and eventually when you gear out the build you should have the Boneblocker Bonerazor in your Legendarium, and you should be wearing the Egg of Wonder if you can, or have it in the Legendarium. You should ideally have the Celestial Pauldrons for extra Netherling summons. And as you can see, I'm using Holy Fury, and I think with the Vitality Extractor as an equipped weapon, it would be nice. Another one would be the Entropic Reach, or you can wear one, put another one in the Legendarium, and it would be pretty nice. But with the Vitality Extractor and with Consecration maxed out to give you the healing, leveled up to the bonus that gives you healing, you can stack 5 plus 3% healing per second as long as you're channeling Holy Fury and standing in that zone. Right now the way I focus my build is to be using my relic active skill and Entropy. And Holy Fury is just there as a bonus to be proccing the white skills and stuff like that. Right now I don't have enough mana regeneration, so I'm avoiding using Holy Fury and Entropy, but normally I would be using Holy Fury and in between doing the Entropy and the Bane. But I think it's better to just focus on the Bane and Entropy the way I have for now, until you get some good items to synergize them well. Ideally they would change the bonuses that give us percent pet damage, and that percent pet damage would start benefiting our summons, the Bane ones, the Netherlings, the Goblins, the Automatons, and all of that, like Goblin Hounds, Skeletons, and so on. Until that is changed, for now the build's not gonna do that much damage from the summons. The main source would be the Relic Active skill, or Entropy, or Holy Fury, depending on what items you are gunning for and what you have leveled up. Let's talk about the skills first and then the other stuff later. The skill setup you're seeing right now is not complete. It's level 33, and in the description you would be seeing a level 60 and a level 30 suggested setup. Keep in mind that I've got some ideas of how to build the setup, and one of those ideas would be to be using the item that allows us to heal up when using Holy Fury, which would be the Vitality Extractor. It lets you regenerate 5% max health per second and increases your poison defense by 100%. Another thing that I would try and get would be Molten Reach. Gains twice as many projectiles and an 8-second cooldown, and for that we would need the cooldown reduction from Dark Spears tier 2. Another thing that might be worth considering would be this one when running away, or this one, but more about that when we are in the Legendarium segment. So you can see right now I'm keeping Holy Fury 1 pointer, Luminous Run 1 pointer. Eventually I would want to level those to at least tier 2 each for different things. When I started leveling I had Holy Bolt, then I got Dark Spears on level 2, and then I got Unholy Bolt and started pumping points into it for the Dark Skills damage, because I knew I will be a Dark Skill damage build with Entropy and Spirit Well doing some of the damage. For the early levels Dark Spears was working fine, and combining that with the 1 point Holy Fury meant I can reach the maximum 80% slow, which is not just speed of the attacks and not just speed of the movement, but also the attacks. So up to 80% slowing of the enemy's attack and movement speed when you stack the two skills. Holy Fury, although is not the best for damage until you get that Holy Fury mana cost and you try to get other places that give you some mana regeneration and things like that, such as Damnation. Damnation tier 1 is amazing, and You would have to save some points. I suggest save some points to get Entropy maxed out ASAP. So maybe when you see that you're reaching level 20, around level 15, 16, you might want to start saving points. But try to at least get tier 1 of netherim well as soon as you can. Try to get at least tier 1 Damnation, preferably tier 2 Damnation, and tier 2 Unholy both. You may not want to get the duration for Dark Spears, and that's completely fine. I've invested points because I want the cooldown for Dusk Mage skills, so I know it would be useful for me. You might wanna put 6 points into Shadow Step. Eventually I would want that. I would want that 15% mana regeneration from Shadow Step, because it applies to you all the time when you have that. And then things like Consecration would be amazing instead of Damnation if you don't need the mana again. And another thing that you can put there would be Dark Spears, again a decent thing to use. I would suggest staying away from Radiant Blast unless you really need something to let you get rid of enemies when they come close to you. But I think Consecration is great because I've not tested it right now, but I can just do the test for you. So just give me a moment, let's test it quickly with a Respectacle. What used to happen in previous versions is the pets used to trigger Consecration. The pets used to trigger Consecration, and I used to be able to get from those spiders of Venomous Maw, I used to be able to get the Consecration things. I'm gonna have to try it out with the spiders, because you see the Netherlings didn't increase it, and that's good. That's how it should be. Netherlings shouldn't be. I think there was a bug, but they fixed it. So before there was this point in time where we could get those spiderlings here to trigger that buff damage, that 15% damage per ally. I think it's nerfed, but it's still good to have that even if you're playing solo. It's still a nice skill. It's a huge DPS bonus, and if you stack Consecration maxed out for the healing with Holy Fury and you have that healing relic, you can have a lot of healing per second, like 8% healing per second, which is pretty solid of a heal. Maybe not as solid now that they've buffed the enemies to be kind of 1-2 shotty in Ridiculous, but still a solid one. Next, I'm going to be talking about pet skills and how to use those. First, you can only have one aura, and the auras are 4. Bog chance, regardless whether you're wearing a shield, defenses, crit chance, and movement speed. Of course, if you have shitloads of crit chance, you probably may want to not use the Deadlier Strikes, but right now Deadlier Strike seems to be the best one. Bog chance is capped at 40%, so if you have around 35-6, it's not worth getting that just for a few percent, knowing that you're gonna be overkilling it. Movement speed is pretty nice for when you're doing some easier content, speedrunning stuff where you think you don't need that crit strike, but you want to be moving faster. Then yeah, that's pretty nice. Especially if you're playing in a party, make sure that each party member has a different aura, because you may only be able to wear one and you cannot stack the same one multiple times, but you can stack all 4 of them together. So other skills that I recommend using: Healing Friendship for healing every now and then, Screeching Stun is nice, and eventually you would want Necropupper. Necropupper would be perfect. Because this should be healing your pets as well, not just you. And Necropupper gives you some more pets, and we're hoping for the developers to eventually make 65% damage for pets actually maybe be less of a number, like 30% or 35%, but apply to our Netherlings, to our spiders, and maybe to things like a Necropupper and skeletons we summon from items, and other things we summon from items like the Goblin Hounds and so on. So those are my suggested skills. Other worthy mentions would be Pass the Gas for Bane builds and Immobilizing Strikes to keep them away from you. I sometimes use defensive postures or battle cry or both of them together if I haven't unlocked any skills. For now that's the ones I'm using and I suggest using. Eventually I'm gonna replace this with Necropupper. Now let's talk about the relics. My relic of choice for the majority of summoner builds would be the Bane. Alternatively you can try and use the Cold Heart where you can get a golem as a summon. And be a little bit less damagey, more defensive, more crowd control oriented. But this one is good for two reasons. First, it gives you up to 12 spiders and up to 90% chance to summon those spiders when you kill a poisoned enemy, which is pretty solid, but you need to get 10 points into this. You start with 40% and 2 spiders, and each point here gives you a spider, each point here gives you 5% chance. So from 40 it goes to 90, from 2 it goes to 12. It also gives you Venomous Maw, which is one of the two relics which has a default 8-second cooldown, meaning you wouldn't need to invest too much to get it down to 2.4 seconds or lower. 2.4 seconds is achievable by just getting 10 points here and getting 20% relic active skill cooldown, which as you see comes from this skill. Apart from that, it also can do a decent amount of damage. So right now, without having relic active skill damage bonus buff, it's at 210%. When you get relic active skill damage, that 210% would probably be close to 250%. On my sharpshooter, I have it at 252% damage, which is pretty nice, because that's damage per second and that's for 4 seconds, which means a total of, right now I have it at 840, for others it might be 1000. So definitely worth it, and you can get that cooldown very low. If you want to, if you want a cheesy build, you can go and try and get this cooldown to 0 seconds, but you're sacrificing a lot of other things from your items that you may want to consider. Maybe 1 second, 0.5 seconds might be what you want to go for. But yeah, that's kind of it. Once you've gotten this to 10 points and this to 10 points, which would be the first things you get, start putting points here. Once this is 10 points, start putting points here. Once this is 10 points, my suggestion would be to get this one, to increase the chance to get those missiles. Or you can just spread them 5-5, 6-4, 7-3, whatever, but I prefer going for 10 points chance instead of bumping the damage here. And that's kind of it for the relic. Next you're gonna see some information about items and the legendarium. So here we are at the segment where I talk about items and good item rows and good item bases, and show you the legendarium suggested picks. First I'm gonna list, and not based on priority, I'm just listing some things that you might wanna look for in items. First, flat damage, things like the thing you're seeing here, flat damage. Then you might wanna be looking for things like plus X% bonus to certain type of damage, physical, bleeding, electric, fire, poison, etc. You might want to be looking for that one. Then you might want to be looking for crit chance, crit damage. Crit damage is capped at 300%, so keep that in mind, not to overkill it with it. Things like relic active skill cooldown and relic cooldown would be nice, but relic active skill cooldown is better because it works for the Venomous Maw, and right now without items that give me this, I've got it at 2.4 seconds. With one item that gives me 10-11%, I can get it to like 1.6, 1.4. With two items for a total of like another 20%, I get this close to 0, like 0.5, 0.6. Then other things you might want to look for would be mana regen per second. It's amazing, especially on an offhand. You can stack a built-in one, a one in the stats, and then if you have some sockets you can get extra more mana regen and be super spammy. So there is that to consider. Let me list some more things like HP and defense, of course amazing. The non-elemental defense is good for any act, but it's a lesser number, so it's gonna be lower. But you still want to be prioritizing, if you can, the basic defense. And then when you're focusing for different sets for different types of content, which eventually when you reach level 60 you're gonna have one set for Act 1, one set for Act 3, one set of items for Act 2, and you would be switching between those based on what map you're entering, what stage of the endgame content you would be entering, if you know the enemies beforehand. Gearwork is amazing. Gearwork, you want gearwork because, well, that goes up to 100%, and you get much higher chance of getting gear and getting legendary gear with that. So the higher the gearwork, the better, needless to say. You can get a legendary item to give you up to like 10% gearwork and the higher levels as a base, and then you can add 1, 2 or even 3 times extra 5 or 4 or 6 gearwork based on how lucky you are with enchantment. And this is just an example of an item that gives you around 14% gearwork or so, so not bad. You can see here I'm getting my gearwork from 24 to 32. I mean, it's not 14, it's 12, but still decent amount of gearwork on a green item. So that's another good stat. Another good thing worth considering is chance to poison, chance to bleed, chance to burn, chance to stun, chance to slow, and chance to blind. Now let's talk why and when you would want each of those. If you want to be poisoning from other sources that are not this thing, so that you can proc the spiders, the 8-legged allies, and to proc spread of death, then you want chance to poison. If you think this would be enough to poison enemies and you want to be stacking poison with bleeding and burning, then you want those things. You want to be stacking the bleeding and burning chance together with this one's chance to poison, and then you can inflict all 3 different damage over types on a single enemy. Keep in mind that sometimes when you're using Egg of Wonder, you're going to be doing the bleeding relic or the burning relic, and that would help you a bit with that, but it's pretty random, so you don't know what's gonna get cast when you cast this. You can see right now we didn't see either of those I mentioned. It keeps giving me ice and shock. It's just RNG. But I think the game is just trolling me now. Let's do it until there we go, we saw the burning, and yeah, okay. So keep in mind that poison stacks up to 3 times, bleeding and burning stacks up to only 1 time. Now, I think we've gone through those, but let's mention about why you might want blind, slow or stun. First, they're nice to have, and you do have slow, so you don't even need to have gear with chance to slow. You can slow with this, you can slow with dark spears. It would work well, regardless of what you do. So keep that in mind. If you get 6 points into this one, it's definitely gonna be, for level 60 setup, a good investment. Now, what do we talk about next? Let's talk about items you might want to wear and put in the Legendarium. Ideally, you would be wearing things like the Celestial Pauldrons and 2 more pieces. And the 2 more pieces I could suggest would be the Gauntlets, as 1 piece, or one of the pieces that gives you dark skills or white skills, which we can see here. The Curious, the chest is the white skills, and for the dark skills it's the mask. But you might want to use something else, because right now those don't work and you don't get the plus to dark skills or white skills until it's fixed. So something that's really good might be the Celestial Pants, and the Celestial Gauntlets, as I mentioned, is nice, and the Celestial Boots. Celestial Boots is amazing, especially if you go for a cooldown Entropy build. But even if you don't, it's always nice to have that 5 plus another up to 5, so for 10% mana per second, which can stack with your other mana regeneration, and just in general it's a great thing to consider. Now, ideal setup would be using a Boneblocker and Bonerazor in the relics, in the Legendarium. So you would be using Boneblocker and Bonerazor in the Legendarium, so you can have up to 10 skeletons equipped, not equipped, but spawning when you cast your relic skill. And from the shoulders that I showed you, from the celestial shoulders, you're gonna be getting 4 netherlings when you have 2 more celestial items. So pick 2 celestial items and use the powdrons together with those other 2. My suggestion would be to probably go for gauntlets and boots as another option to accommodate towards the celestial powdrons until they fix the mask and the chest. Then you might want to invest into those. Something else that you really want to either be wearing or have in your legendarium would be Egg of Wonder, so that as you see, you can cast another random relic active skill when you use the relic active skill, so keep that in mind. And then you might want Vitality Extractor or Molten Reach. Molten Reach would make Entropy do twice as many projectiles but have an 8-second cooldown, which many of you might not like, but the Vitality Extractor is probably the better thing to wear. You can put one of those into the Legendarium and wear one of them, or vice versa, and ideally wear the Egg of Wonder for the mana again, and then have the Boneblocker and Bonerazor here. Or you can just ignore the Molten Reach and just focus on Vitality Extractor. Vitality Extractor is 5% HP per second. Then you have Consecration with up to another 3% HP per second. So that's 8 HP per second when you're standing in a tier 3 Consecration. Pretty solid if you ask me, and to keep hitting you. Not as solid versus those one-shotty enemies with the recent patch from yesterday, where they made the enemies on ridiculous have less HP but do more damage. I'm not a big fan of this change. I didn't like playing bullet hell. I'd much rather be able to tank some hits, soak some hits, even if it takes me longer to kill the enemies. I don't feel like I should be focusing on dodging every single hit and just be killed by 2 hits from a trash mob. With my forged I had like 48% damage reduction. On top of that I had 50% more defense buff. So that was bringing those 50% defense to maybe make that 48 to 60 something for a short amount of time. And then I had 20% melee damage reduction, and I was still getting one shot by the weakest Hivit soldiers. So let's talking about this. I already submitted feedback about it. Let's talk about the set for the arc bonuses. The arc bonus set is nice, and even though you have Wood Beast, from the Wood Beast the only thing I would think that's worth considering is the shoulders. And since we are using the Netherling shoulders from the Celestial set, it's not gonna be viable using Wood Beast in the Legendarium unless they fix it so that wearing 2 Wood Beast pieces would allow us to combine it with something in the Legendarium, and vice versa. Right now, if I wear 2 Wood Beast items and put the shoulders in the Legendarium while wearing the Celestial shoulders, the other 2 Wood Beast pieces and the shoulders would not get the 3-piece set bonus. Unless this was changed, but last time I checked it wasn't. Let me quickly check it for you. I'm gonna quickly equip this Cuirass, and you can see I'm wearing 2 Celestial pieces. They're not getting the 3-piece bonus, and my Legendarium equipped Cuirass is not getting the 3-piece bonus. So this needs a fix. Hopefully Michael would fix it, because it would open up a lot more possibilities. Now back to the arc powered set. Arc powered boots are amazing, so consider using those in a build. And consider combining those with things like the chest or the gloves or the pants. The pants are amazing. I mean, the pants are killer. Definitely nice. Instantly refreshing the relic skill. 10% chance though, so kind of not that much of a chance, but hopefully 1 out of 10 really does trigger this. Then skittering boots is not bad either. Skittering boots is amazing. Skittering shoulders is not bad either, but again you're gonna have to be wearing the Celestial, and skittering pants is okay for some item work, not too bad. I would avoid getting skittering gloves or skittering helmet, because they're pretty much only for a specific for the specific frontier, specific act. So that's pretty much it, I guess, for certain items I'm recommending. So there might be other items you might want that I've missed. There's plenty. There's 104 in the Legendarium, and the Legendarium doesn't even include all of them. It's missing things like the arc-powered shoulders. So there's that. So hopefully this was helpful. Now next we can show you some more gameplay of the build in action. So here we are again at the gameplay segment, where I show you a little bit more gameplay of me using the build, and I talk about how I kind of rotate my skills. In general, you would want to start with probably getting those Netherlings from Spirit Well up, and then you might want to follow up with either Entropy or with the Bane active skill with Venomous Maw. I prefer starting with Venomous Maw and then using Entropy, but I guess it depends on your cooldown of the Venomous Maw, what you would be using when. And one thing that I would suggest, if you're using Damnation, use Damnation before using the Venomous Maw and Entropy. If you don't have Damnation, use Consecration before using Venomous Maw and Entropy, and try to make sure that either you're using Consecration so that the summons are inside, or at least that you're inside. Right now I think the better option is for you to be standing in Consecration instead of the summoners, because you're the main source of damage, not the summons. The summons are there to body block enemies, to keep them kind of away from you, and hopefully they would make so that when we are using the maxed version of Spirit Well, that the Netherim Brute taunts. I'm gonna add that suggestion to note, and hopefully they would consider making the maxed out tier 3 Netherling, the Netherim Brute, to actually taunt. Here is me playing against this. Keep in mind the gear I'm using is far from perfect for my level. But I still think she's dying reasonably fast. Considering how I'm playing. I'm not a meta player, nor is the build meta, yet we're still doing fine. So just showing you how it is. Of course, Holy Fury is there if you need it, and while leveling you're probably gonna need to use Holy Fury more. You can also use Dark Spear on the second skill slot. I know I did for quite some time. I hope you enjoy the build, I hope you find it fun. If you find ways to make it stronger, better, or just let me know what version of the build you're using in the description. I would be happy to see your spin. If you wanna get notified for more content about this game or others like it, or various different types of RPGs, ARPGs, tactical RPGs, all sorts of RPGs, or other types of looters, you could subscribe to my channel, get that bell button clicked to not miss those notifications. Thanks again for watching the video, folks. Keep it cool, and until next time, goodbye.